Sveiki sugrįžę į What's Next Talks, kur tyrinėsime naujausias tendencijas, idėjas ir technologijas, kurios nulems mūsų ateitį. Mano vardas Živilė ir šiandien kartu su Monika neriame į neįtikėtiną dirbtinio intelekto augimą ir tai, kaip jis toliau vystysis bei darys įtaką mūsų kasdieniniam gyvenimui. Be abejo, ir vėl turiu daugybę klausimų. Kas yra dirbtinis intelektas, dauguma jūsų jau žino. Bet kaip jis staiga tapo toks protingas ir kokie yra tie naujieji dirbtinio intelekto įrankiai, apie kuriuos visi dabar kalba? Ar dirbtinis intelektas atims mūsų darbus? Ar jis yra kūrybingas? Ar tai yra grėsmė ar galimybė? Kaip galime tuo pasinaudoti? Ar dirbtinis intelektas gali apgauti kitą dirbtinį intelektą? O gal dirbtinis intelektas gali pakeisti kolegą, kai jis atostogauja? Oho, tiek daug klausimų. Laimiai, mes taip pat turime daug atsakymų. Taigi, pradėkime nuo pagrindų. Dirbtinis intelektas yra kompiuterių mokslo šaka, kuria siekiama sukurti programas, galinčias mąstyti ir mokytis kaip žmonės. Tai technologija, kuri sparčiai tobulėja ir gali pakeisti mūsų gyvenimo ir darbo būdą. Vienas iš įdomiausių dirbtinio intelekto aspektų yra jo gebėjimas mokytis ir prisitaikyti. Naudodamas mokymosi algoritmus, dirbtinis intelektas gali analizuoti duomenis ir prognozuoti bei priimti tikslesnius sprendimus nei tie, kuriuos daro žmonės. Tai gali sukelti ir jau kelia revoliuciją realiai visose pramonės šakose. Ši technologija taip pat naudojama ir kuriant naujas meno ir pramogų formas. Pavyzdžiui, dirbtinis intelektas jau dabar naudojamas kuriant muziką, kuriant vaizdus, tekstus, idėjas, kurie realiai nesiskiria nuo žmonių sukurtų. Kad geriau suprastumėm visą šį algoritmais pagrįstą pasaulį, pasikalbėkime su draugais iš Vice Media kūrybinės agentūros Virtue. Persikelkime į Londono studiją, kur Monika kalbės su savo kolegomis, kurie pateiks praktinių pavyzdžių, kaip jie naudoja dirbtinį intelektą vaizdų kūrimui, rašymui ir skaitmeniniam aktyvumui. Ir tuo pačiu papasakos apie jų įgyvendintą projektą praėjusiame pasaulio čempionate, kur jie naudoja dirbtinį intelektą, siekdami apgauti kitą dirbtinį intelektą. Skamba įdomiai, tiesa? Taigi nieko daugiau nelaukime ir išsiaiškinkime, kas ir kaip su tuo dirbtiniu intelektu.
Hi, and welcome to Virtue, agency powered by Vice. My name is Monika. I head the biz development here in Europe. And today I'm sitting down with Tao Thomsen, our global creative director from Copenhagen. He's a part of our innovations team and also a multi-award-winning, Cannes-awarded creative director behind a bunch of wonderful and amazing projects.
Thank you for having me.
Hello.
Hi.
And Tao is a person who is dabbling in his everyday life as well as in creative sphere quite a lot with AI. So could you tell me a little bit more about it? Like what do you do? What do you find so interesting for AI in the next year?
I think you don't need to be a big futurist to see that we're heading into a recession, which means that everybody and creative agencies, more so than anybody else, will have to do more with less. And I think if you couple that with like the stratospheric rise and sort of like mainstream availability of AI, that's going to be one of the very obvious places for agencies to look to sort of to like output their work and bolster what resources they have. Now, the question is not whether or not you will use it or you can use it. I think the real question is whether or not you can get, in a very short time frame, comfortable enough and acquainted enough with these technologies to use them as a force for creativity versus just knowing them enough to use them as sort of like a life playing, to use them to protect the bottom line in the time that we're heading into. So my recommendation to people, especially in the creative departments, would be not to view this as a threat or as a challenge, but as a very welcome help that can with a little bit of training and sort of like reading up might very well save your creative output in the coming year.
Okay, so thinking about it from very, very practical sense, I know that you yourself are going away to India, right, for a month, and you are basically replacing yourself in the office with an AI machine. Is that true?
It is not entirely untrue, at least. First of all, I'm a copywriter by trade, so the majority of my work in AI has been in that sphere, or at least my best work with that has been in that sphere. That also means that I have a couple of close colleagues who will miss me a lot in the day-to-day, because I often do a lot of like offloading their highly visual brains by helping them with the myriad of things that we all write every day. Right. So as part of this, I have early access to a text editor that has sort of like a backdoor into GPT-3, the artificial or like machine learning language program that's created by OpenAI, the same people who made Dolly. And I gave my two special invites to my two teammates, and then created a bunch of templates for them, each of which contain a sample of the type of writing that they asked me to do the most. So there's
a number of tasks.
A number of different tasks.
Yeah.
And the great thing about this program is that it's you can go into GPT-3 directly and like set up entire programs for this, but if you want a quick and dirty solution, you can actually just open up a document, fire in your references, like simply copy and pasting, and then ask the computer to repeat something in the style of those prompts. So instead of going through and training everything, you put that thing in and it realizes, okay, so the structure of this is 5 words with an alliteration, for example, that is a snappy headline. Right. Or it could be like a 3-point summary of like insight, idea, execution. It can learn these kind of structures really, really fast.
Can it learn a tone?
Tonality, yes. It does have a tendency when you start asking it to iterate again and again, people call it hallucinate. So like right. it will veer off rails every once in a while. But yeah, it can learn tonality very well. Like one of the tasks that I use it to with great effect is low-level copywriting, such as, for example, social copy. Like feed it the last 15 tweets from a brand account, and ask it to do another 50. 10 to 20% of those will be pretty convincing, like examples of that brand tone of voice. 5% of them will be highly entertaining and sort of like live up your day. A handful will be something that you can edit into something workable, and some of them will just be complete misses.
Yeah.
So like, it doesn't do the work for you, but it does help you do the work a lot faster. So specifically for my colleagues, there's a couple of categories that they always ask me for. It's like, can you please write these people in a nice way that will sort of like keep the vibe good.
Can you be polite?
That we need this now,
right?
Or we cannot deliver this until tomorrow, or any other of sort of like low-level inter-office diplomacy.
Yeah.
It's brilliant for this kind of stuff. Like you just tell it, like, tell these people they can have it tomorrow, and it will say, you know, unfortunately, due to budget constraints. Yeah. So like that kind of writing you can really easily pick up. Headlines is a little bit more hit and miss, I would say. I think it's a very nice tool for a copywriter who is either like intimidated by the white page, or just like getting stuck after writing the 55th headline for like, you know, blue cheese spread. Then it gives you 5, and then that feeds off the next 75. So like there's a couple of categories where it can really sort of help both writers and non-writers.
Are there any misconceptions that you have kind of encountered when it comes to AI, and what it is and what it's eaten with, and you know how to consume it?
I think probably the area where there's the most conceptions about AI is in its relations to creativity and sort of like the creative industry at large. There's been this year-long, on one hand, like a giant fear that the robots will take our jobs, and on the other hand, this like dogged persistence that creativity is the last bastion of humanity. Like only human beings can make ideas. But if you are in the business of making ideas, you know that ideas are slightly random variations of things that already exist. Like you can go back to Salvador Dali, like everything is a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
And the question is like, how much do you twist that, or like how do you make that improper combination, that thing that seems completely sort of incompatible until you stick them together and you realize that it can never be any different, you know? And that kind of variation is actually very hard for human beings to do. Like even, let's say 5% of the human race has the capability to sit down and just come up with ideas for a day. Like,
Really?
yeah, I think like the brainstorming is hard for most people. Okay. Even really good creatives don't necessarily have the stamina to do it for more than 2 hours in a row. Like it's hard.
Basically all day brainstorms is bullshit.
All day brainstorms is wonderful because they consist of like 70% shooting the shit. Or if you want to take that again, all day brainstorms are beautiful because they consist of so much sort of like meandering about the topic. It's really a conversation. Anyway, so for these misconceptions, I think the first one and the most dogged one is that they are ways to automate or take away your work, whereas I find that they are really collaborative in nature. Like it doesn't do the work for you, it augments the work that you're already doing. And that leads into the second one, is that a lot of people fear that they are sort of formulaic in nature, is that when we use AI to help in creative tasks, we will come up with these like, sort of like cookie cutter solutions, like solving an equation almost. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because if you've tried to work with either any of the image generators, with DALL-E or Midjourney or with any of the GPT-3 powered stuff, you see that they are highly random. Right. They're highly random. So what they add isn't sort of order, it's chaos to the project and to the process. And chaos is intrinsic to the creative process. That's one of the reasons why the best ideas arise in conversation. Like the beauty of which
there's a tension in it. There's chaos and tension and kind of.
And there's a slight spin, like a tennis match. You know, the beauty of conversation is not just that I don't know what you will answer, but that I don't yet know what answer that will bring forward in me.
Right.
Like it's that chaos that makes great ideas arise out of conversation, and which makes my job the best in the world, because I get to have these kind of conversations every day with super clever people. Now, when I don't have these super clever people around me, I can get that interjection of chaos from the AI, because that's really what it does best. It's throw that linear thought process a little bit off the beaten path and get an answer that you wouldn't have arrived at logically.
So it's like a perfect sidekick.
It's a sidekick, and I think that gets me to the last misconception, which is that people feared that they would come in and become our creative directors. Like they would determine our output. But when you think about it, what they do is that they make all these variations. The one thing they cannot do is know which of them are good.
Right,
like,
right. Yeah,
right?
That's true.
In that sense, they kind of sort of resemble an intern. Somebody fresh out of school with like, comes in, shows you 20 ideas, 18 of which would never work. One of them is absolutely perfect, and like this fresh boost of energy to the creative department. They have no clue which of the ideas is that one idea.
And do you think that was going to involve? Do you think it's possible to involve for them to understand that certain idea is going to be good, or is it so subjective?
I'm not an expert in cognition, but from my work with it, my experience is that the thing that they cannot do is pick the good one out. And in that sense, they are not our creative directors, they are our creative interns.
Right.
And I think that power balance is way more fun to work with than this idea that they need to decide, like, you know, like another level of testing to the creative process.
And I suppose it's more reassuring, you know, for people in general, for the creative process. It's much more reassuring.
100%. Like, I don't think anybody from the art department needs to fear for losing their jobs to the robots right now. I think people from the copy department maybe don't, they have a few less years before they need to start worrying, especially if what they do is like really sort of in the end of the funnel, like conversion emails, for example, like sales offers, that kind of stuff. That's not that far away. But in reality, it's not a question of them taking our jobs, it's a question of them helping us with our jobs. So we shouldn't worry about being made redundant and filled in by algorithm, we should look really well at how we can use these to boost our output, because if we do it well, they can actually be a great tool for creativity. If we do them less well, they will just end up being able to allow us to keep our heads over water and keep the hamster wheel spinning.
I know that today something has launched in Qatar.
Oh, that's very true. We actually...
Tell me about it.
I think this is a good example of the kind of chaos that I spoke about. We just recently, or like just today, 1 hour and 6 minutes ago, launched a project called Camouflags in reaction to the news that Qatar has recently purchased 15,000 CCTV cameras with built-in facial recognition to survey every move of the football fans who go to the World Cup. So from the second you land in the airport to you leave again, they will know where you are constantly through this kind of like state surveillance apparatus that would make George Orwell fall over. Like the state surveillance apparatus that would shock even George Orwell.
Right.
And we happened to have made a few experiments with using actually makeup and face paint to fool this kind of like facial recognition algorithms before. So when somebody brought these news to us, we found it very natural to bring this back again, because if there's one time in your entire life where you can walk down the street wearing outrageous and outlandish like paintings and patterns on your face, it's going to a football match, right? You have the flags, you have the St. George Cross, or the Brazilians. We've all seen these images of fans like made up in this gesture. And what we found out is that within the pattern of the flag, we could hide sort of geometric patterns that would fool the facial recognition algorithm.
How does it do that?
It does so by basically, what's the best way to explain this in a very non-wordy way? I think the best way of understanding it is through contouring, you know, like this whole makeup tool that's made to enhance all of your features.
Right.
Now, instead of thinking about bringing out the cheekbones or like enlarging the eyes or making we know this. Think about ways that makeup patterns can fool the algorithm into thinking that facial features are elsewhere than where they actually are. So have it think that the corners of the mouth end here instead of here, and it will never be able to compare your face to the database.
Right, because I remember you were saying the way AI in general, the facial recognition works is that they're measuring the distance between, say, corners of the lips, between nose and the lips, between eyes, and that's how they map the face. So you're moving, in effect, features on the face somewhere else. Yeah,
I think that's a nice way of putting it, that like the computer can never recognize you. It doesn't know what a face is, it doesn't know who you are. What it does know is that it looks for patterns of shade and light, and from there it infers sort of where different landmarks are in the face. The corners of the eyes, tip of the nose, yada, yada, yada. If you can, instead of working with the light, if you can sort of work contrary to the light, then you can fool it into thinking that your eyebrows go up here. Or that, you know, the bridge of your nose is really down here. And all it really takes is like a few centimeters for it to not be able to compare you to an image of yourself without the makeup.
Right.
Like it only takes moving one or two features a few centimeters from where they actually are before it isn't able to make that connection to your face without the makeup.
Arguably, you can say that criminals can hide behind makeup and do some hooligan stuff in Qatar.
No comment. But no, I mean, yes, that is true, but then we should also think about what constitutes crime in Qatar. Such as, for example, holding hands in public, being intoxicated, having a partner of the same sex as yourself. Speaking out against state suppression or surveillance is in itself a crime in Qatar. So, yes, while there is certainly sort of like a way to escape crimes, the majority of those would probably not be conceived as criminal by you, me, or any other sort of like modern democratic person. Now, back to where AI plays into this. we knew a few different types of patterns that had been shown to disrupt the facial recognition. Like there are styles of face paint out there. What we needed to do was to make these look like flags. And instead of trying by hand and painting like a million different ones, because where do you start really with that?
Yeah.
We asked a image, like a generative AI that creates images, it's called Midjourney, gave it an input image of something that we knew would disrupt the facial recognition, and then asked it to generate 50 plus variations of that image reimagined as a flag. Basically, so we're saying like, here's a photo of Gene Simmons from Kiss, make him look like a flag. And then from that, we tested those through a couple of different sort of face recognition APIs until we got something that like repeatedly fooled it, then did those on our faces in like a real life test.
So you used AI to fool AI.
We're using AI to fool AI, yeah.
Brilliant.
But as with all other uses of this, again, it's a tool. It's not a replacement. Like you couldn't have just asked it to run until it found one, because after some time, even like the most tightly run algorithm will start creating these weird patterns and like a third eye in the middle of the head, for example. So there's still a big element of like human beings guiding them.
Yeah, quality control.
Quality control, or even just like executive control, right? Like you tell it what to do, it does our bidding.
So is it a part of the work in Qatar, and I know more work that you have done together with the team, is it a part of the digital activism that you talk quite a lot about?
I think, yeah, you could definitely argue that's a driving theme in a lot of what we do. And I think our approach to this digital activism is never to do it in a way where it's just about the message, but to figure out ways to get a little bit closer to the action. And I think if you want to be a little bit critical, like the end point of digital activism for the last 10 years or so has been like, click here. You know, it's a prompt. It's share this message, sign the petition, at the very, very best, like donate some amount. But that's still pretty divorced from like action.
Yeah.
Like if you went back to the civil rights movement in the 60s and said like, look at all these people, they taking action, they would say, where?
Yeah.
You know? But one of the things that guide our work is a firm belief that a lot of these technologies have become so mature and so sort of like within reach of people like us and brands and clients, and that they can actually be used to drive something a lot closer to actual action. So what we normally say is like, even though we are all trained as communicators, right, we try to, in this sense, think of ourselves more as facilitators. And that means instead of having a message and shooting it at someone, we think about how can this technology become a tool to enact action in a way, which makes this completely beautiful shift where instead of like segmenting people into audiences of these people that we want to do something, that we're trying to convince to do something, they're suddenly collaborators. Like they're people who work with us. And instead of the end goal of all this being to prompt them, to ask them, oh, please go and share this message or speak out or write your representative or whatever, we enable them to take action themselves. So we sort of, you could say that the digital has set foot in the physical in a way that brings us a little closer to action.
Yeah, and I guess on that we will wrap up, and thank you so much
for
speaking to me today and to us. Thank you again, and bye guys.
Vis dar negaliu patikėti, kad dirbtinis intelektas taip vystosi ir realiai keičia mūsų kasdienybę ir darbą. Ir tie vaizdai, kuriuos šie dirbtinio intelekto įrankiai gali padaryti per kelias sekundes, mane realiai šokiravo. Tai, ką išgirdome per šiuos 3 paskutinius epizodus apie Web3, metavisatą ir dirbtinį intelektą, mane verčia galvoti, kad tikrai gyvename ateityje. Akivaizdu, kad vienintelis įrankis, kurio reikės kūrybingiam žmonėm, bus jų vaizduotė, kritinis mąstymas, mokėjimas atsirinkti ir gerai bei kūrybiškai formuluoti užduotis. Aš nežinau, kaip jūs, mano mėlieji, bet šis natūralus intelektas tikrai jau turi pailsėti po šio didžiulio informacijos krūvio. Labai dėkoju, kad prisijungėte prie mūsų ir pasimatysime kitoje mūsų serijoje, kurioje pasinersime į labai ypatingą projektą, keičiantį meno išsaugojimo būdą, kurį mūsų draugai iš Virtue sukūrė Ukrainai. Prisijunkite, nes garantuoju, tikrai nenorėsite to praleisti. Jeigu norite prisijungti prie mūsų kelionės ir nuolat praturtinti save naujausiamis žiniomis apie ateities tendencijas, nepamirškite užsiprenumeruoti, spausti patinka ir įjungti pranešimus, kad nepraleistumėte kito vaizdo įrašo. Labai ačiū, kad žiūrėjote ir visada nepamirškite, būkite geri, būkite kūrybingi ir smalsūs. What's next?